Happy Thanksgiving, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold, a real estate podcast taking a look at what's going on behind the scenes from a no nonsense perspective from two locals. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm an expert witness, and I'm the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. I'm joined here by my co host, Daniel Hernandez. He's a real estate professional over at Compass Real Estate. He does condos, he does single family houses, and his office is in Coconut Grove. So next time you're in the Grove, swing by, say hi to Daniel, and maybe you guys can go have some lunch or over at Monty's, or maybe you can go to Starbucks and have a coffee.
Ooh, Starbucks and have coffee. I can talk all the crap I want about Starbucks. I drink it. The cold brew's fantastic. You can actually get a cup of coffee at Starbucks for like $3. People just get the Frappuccino with the CBD oil and I don't know, and they wind up spending $15 on a cup of coffee. That's for the coffee podcast, which we aren't doing. Today is actually Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We're pre-recording this. We've only done this like 3 times to you guys ever in 28 episodes, but we figure nobody is working on Friday unless you are working on Friday, and I'm sorry. That's awful. But we figure, hey, no one's going to be watching the show live on Friday. Why don't we pre-record it? We give ourselves a break, and then we get to build up like 10 days worth of potential stories for you next Friday. So Peter and I have been working tirelessly for the last few days to come up with 5 completely new topics since we just had a show like 5 days ago. I was just telling Peter, I have so much respect for people who do this on a daily basis because just to keep it fresh, to keep it new, it's a tremendous job. And this is a 2-man show, and we are so very grateful. I am grateful. It is Thanksgiving. I am thankful for you, our fellow listeners, our participants, our guests, the real estate industry as a whole. Okay, maybe I'm getting a little emotional here, but we are recording this, so this is going to go live on Friday at 4, and then we're going to chop it up into little clips, and you'll see it all over social media. But with that, for all of those who have never joined us before, this is Buy, Sell, Hold, and what we do here is that we pick a number of topics every week, and Peter and I discuss them, we talk about them, we give you some news updates, but we don't just read the news, right? Because that's not interesting. You can get news from anywhere. We got to opine. We have to have opinions. We have to have feelings from our experience, and that's why you watch it, because we do this. We're in the field day in and day out, and we can give you good insights. You don't have to agree with us. Hell, you don't even have to watch the show, but we hope you do. And with that, we're going to jump right into it. Miami-Dade College plays its trump card. That's a pun because, well, Miami-Dade College decided ubiquitously that they were going to give a multi-acre parcel across the street from Biscayne Bay in downtown Miami to the Trump Library Foundation. Peter, you've spoken with several people regarding the value of this lot. What was that number, and how did you arrive at that?
So the lots about, depending on how you look at it, 2.5 to 2.63 acres. It's located right across to the south of the Freedom Tower. It's a couple blocks north of where the Waldorf Astoria is going up, where they're selling condos or trying to sell condos for $50 million a unit. It's on the west side of Biscayne Boulevard, right at the entrance to Port Miami. Used to be called Port of Miami, but they hired a consultant. They said, you guys need to rebrand, so drop the of. So now it's called Port Miami. It's no longer called Port of Miami. Probably a $100,000 consulting fee, but that's a different story. So this site is centrally located, and as a result of that, it falls under the Mac Daddy of all zoning. It allows 1,000 units per acre, and guess what, Daniel? If you're a developer and you build parking in a high rise, it's probably going to be about 40 grand a spot, $40,000 per spot. You know how many parking spaces are required in this particular development if they were to go forward with 2,500 units?
Zero.
Ding, 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 ding,
Wow.
ding. Normally, parking's about 1.5 parking spaces per unit, 2,500 units at 40 grand a shot. That's a significant cost savings. If you go ahead and you blend out what the current market price is, $2.1 million a door or a unit for one of these, you're looking at a sellout north of $5 billion. So we valued the property about $368 million.
So, and for anybody who's just joining this calamity, and that's us opining on it, it is a complete calamity. What happened was on September 23rd, the trustees of the Miami-Dade College got together and they said, hey, we're going to give this to the Trump Foundation. And it got everyone by such surprise because they had only announced that they were going to have a meeting regarding real estate transactions, not even talking about the lot, just the day before. And according to Florida Sunshine Law, the argument is that they did not provide sufficient context, nor did they provide ample notice to this vote, to this decision. So our very vocal octogenarian local activist, a gentleman by the name of Marvin Dunn, has sued the college. And
He's a
there's a trial.
professor. He's a professor emeritus, I think, at FIU.
Like not certainly a force to be reckoned with. And so, local judge has set a trial date for this in August. Now, why are we talking about this today? Why is it still relevant? Well, because the trustees have come together and they said, you know what, we're going to vote on this again because since we're so certain that the way we did it the first time was correct, we're going to do it again, which doesn't make any sense to me. But so they're going to vote on this again, and I'm going to tell everybody where and when. I annotated it here. The special meeting is scheduled for 8 a.m. at Miami-Dade College's Hialeah campus, conference room 5101. That's going to be on Tuesday, December 2nd. Now, could they have picked a more deeper, darker hole for nobody to attend? Because I know Peter ain't going, the Metro Rail doesn't go out there.
I, Daniel, Miami-Dade College, the campus.
It's like a block away from the site.
It's catty corner.
Why
Catty
why
corner
why are
from
they
the
doing this
site.
in Hialeah? It doesn't make any sense to me.
To take it in Hialeah, and anybody coming from the east who are probably primarily the ones who are going to be affected. These are the people east of Interstate 95.
No,
To get to Hialeah.
it's a joke. So effectively, this is just a little dog and pony show. But the constituency is pissed, properly pissed, and rightfully so. I mean, uh, who's really come out and spoken out about this? Mike Fernandez, who held money back because of the anti-immigration stance that the Trump administration has.
Well,
And
and why
then
don't we get into some of that color? Why don't we get some of that color before you talk about the opposition? Let me sort of point out one thing. So you got the Freedom Tower. Freedom Tower is a 100-year-old building. It opened up in 1925. It was the Miami Daily News back in the day during the Magic City era. And this is according to a book called Bubble in the Sun. And if you have not read it and you care anything about real estate in Florida, read that book, do it over the Thanksgiving, and then follow up with a book that Daniel recommended called 1929. It's part one and part two. It'll take you back to the 20s and the 30s. But this particular building, it was a newspaper building. It was built to be spectacular at the time because we had so many newspapers and Miami was just blowing up everywhere. It was magical how everything just kind of came together. Fast forward, and we get the situation in the 50s and the 1960s. You have a bunch of people fleeing Cuba because of communism, because of Fidel Castro. They all come over, and Freedom Tower, which is now called, used to be called Miami Daily News Building, it becomes the Ellis Island symbolically of where people are processed as they're coming into Port of Miami, which is just right across the street. So they come there, they do it. So this has been saved and seen as a beacon of freedom, of the American dream, of bring us your poor, your weak, your everything else. Come on over. This is the Miami version of the Statue of Liberty. And the Freedom Tower is located immediately across the street from the Trump library location. I went to the book fair this weekend and I was in the Freedom Tower and I was videoing across the street and you can see the magnitude. Now, all that being said, you got a presidential administration that doesn't like immigration, wants to put America first, and wants basically they're picking out people, they're shipping them to alligator Alcatraz, they're shipping them everywhere else. And this library would be right across the street from this Freedom Tower. So the juxtaposition, it's
can't
just
make
sort of
this shit
shocking.
up.
You can't make it up. And then to add to it, what do we got going on with this particular library? What could happen? Well, there was somebody who's really spearheading Miami-Dade College. Remember, when you came to the United States, maybe you came in through South Florida. Maybe you spoke the language, maybe you didn't. Maybe you were sort of trying to integrate into the community. So what did you do? You needed to educate yourself. And how did you educate yourself? You went to Miami-Dade College. They offered cheap tuition. while the University of Miami might be $100 grand a year for tuition, you go to Miami-Dade College, it's like $80 and $100 a credit hour. So significantly different. But what it did is it helped people learn English. It helped people create skills for the United States and for the Miami market. Then they get integrated. Then themselves as well as their kids, they could strive towards living the American dream, which is what it's all about here in the United States. It doesn't matter what your politics are. Everybody sort of looks at that. We're supposed to be this beacon of light. So you're going to have the Freedom Tower right across the street from potentially the Trump Presidential Library. And there's an anti-immigration bend in about 50 miles to the west. You're going to have Alligator Alcatraz, which is a pop-up detention center in the middle of the Everglades, just to sort of juxtapose oppose it. Now, if we take it a step further, Eduardo Padron, the gentleman who really kind of led Miami-Dade College, he saw that the only way to ensure Miami-Dade College could continue to serve its mission was to get in the real estate game. That's how money is made.
Right.
He accumulated this dirt when nobody wanted to go in there because downtown Miami was effectively a shithole. It was one-story buildings. You had air conditioners on top of the roof. They all had to be barred so people wouldn't steal the ACs for scrap metal and sell it down on the Miami River. He had the vision, so he thought, okay, ultimately, when we sell off this dirt, or if we do something with it, it's going to maintain Miami-Dade College. So guess how much Miami-Dade College is receiving for this site? Take a guess what that number is.
Goose egg.
Goose egg. So this money that effectively, you always hear about Harvard University, you hear about these Stanford, you hear about these Ivy Leagues, they have these huge endowments. This was effectively Miami-Dade College's play to ensure that it could serve the purpose that it was basically set up for or basically morphed into. That's our situation. And one last tidbit I would throw out, Daniel. We have a mayoral runoff election coming up. We have two candidates. One candidate has been endorsed by President Trump, even though this is a non-political or an apolitical election. The other candidate effectively is a Democrat. So we got a Republican, we got a Democrat. President Trump's gone out of his way to sign off on one of the candidates. So the question becomes, why would President Trump, who's got to deal with Israel, he's got to deal with Iran, he's got to deal with the Ukraine, he's got to deal with all of the, why does he give two shits about what's going on in Miami? Oh, a Miami mayor might have some sort of input as to what goes on this site that's located right in the heart of the city of Miami. But maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Well, I think he's got his own reasons why he wants Mr. Emilio Gonzalez to be the mayor. But the mayor here in City of Miami really has no teeth. What, you got a veto power that they're never going to use, or they rarely use, except Suarez did use it recently for the lifetime pension thing, which, hey, I got to give him credit for it. He vetoed it.
Yeah, but Daniel, if it looks like a chicken and sounds like a chicken, it's not a duck. or a turkey, I should say.
Or a turkey. Well, we're going to talk about chickens later. So we gotta move on. Buy, sell, hold. Miami-Dade College plays its trump card. Buy, sell, hold.
I'm against it. I'm against everything it represents. Listen, if there's gonna be a land swindle here, pay the cash to the college, let the college put the money away, and continue to serve its purpose.
Look, if they want to give them $400 million for it, which, you know what? Peter's estimate plus 10% for your troubles. Do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think
it served its purpose.
I think that'd be great. Yeah, that's the whole point. I'm with you on that, Pete. So, and this we thread the needle nicely here on buy, sell, hold. So, what happens when constituents throw fits? And maybe there's just too much money at stake with the Trump library thing, and we're just, dogs barking up a tree. But what happened on Key Biscayne at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Biscayne Nature Center is quite amazing. So, as the tale goes, this nature center was opened, I think, about 25 years ago, and they had raised money privately to do so. This is on Key Biscayne, Crandon Park, like getting into just past the Bear Cut Bridge in Virginia Key, and you're getting into the beginnings of Crandon Park on the left side of the street there, right there on the ocean. So this nature center has provided free summer camps to underserved kids. It's given school tours. It's this amazing little organization, and it's been run by the same woman for its whole lifespan, for 25 years. And the deal was the deal was that they were going to have a lifetime of free rent here. but there was some bureaucratic miscommunication where they didn't apply for a thing, and then the county came back and said, well, because you didn't do this and you didn't follow protocol, we're going to have to put this out to bid, which would effectively end the life of this nature center that has done so much for the underserved in this community. Not just underserved, for everybody. And the community got together and they threw a fit. Now, on I think the letter's dated the 16th, but I can pull it up for the gang. But there's a letter signed by the director of Miami-Dade County that basically calls off the hounds and says, all right, you guys can stay month to month while we negotiate what the output here, what the end game is going to be here, because people got pissed, and I applaud the constituents. I applaud the activism, because this shows that if you don't leave your fucking head in the sand, the administrators actually do have to respond. And if they don't, they know that there is a chance that they might be out of the job next time you go to the ballot box. So applause. And that's just that news. And I think if the folks regarding the Trump activism piece, look, I mean, there's really nothing you can do about this vote unless you want to take time out of your Tuesday morning when you actually have to go to work to go to Hialeah instead. Bananas. But you can throw a fit, and administrators do respond. Is the Trump Library brouhaha bigger than a nature center? Yes, unfortunately. But it is still important that you show up and you actively participate.
Listen, it's just it's very challenging to try to just consider that we have the magnitude of real estate investment that's going on in this town, and they can't simply carve out certain areas for things that are essential, like maybe educating new arrivals or maybe helping people to get re-educated because AI is changing the job market. People are gonna have to go somewhere. Not everybody can afford the University of Miami, and maybe they can't make their way all the way to hell out to Florida International University, which is basically on the edge of the Everglades, especially if you live in downtown Miami. So what are you supposed to do? There's few jewels that we have in this town in terms of park space and other things, and to sort of put in jeopardy or call into question some of the essentials. What exactly do we have going on? I mean, do we have a community, or is this basically just like a timeshare where everybody comes in for a certain period of time? I do tours, and when I do my tours, I tell people, and especially in downtown Miami, if you see green space, that is not parkland. That is effectively a condo development site. There should be certain sites that are off limits under any circumstance. And if you apply the name of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas to this, I wanted to say
You were going
Marjorie.
to say Margaret Taylor Greene, weren't you?
That's why I had to go slow. But if you apply her name to a site, the woman who basically was an early arriver in
Waded through
Miami,
Biscayne Bay, had the governor's line on speed dial. She made the Everglades as we know it, and Biscayne
she
Bay
she was
as we know it.
she was a journalist for the Miami Herald. She was an activist before it was cool. She was involved with the setting up of Fairchild. She was part of that group. Her house still stands in Coconut Grove the way it was. And if you read the book Bubble and Sunday, you kind of go through it. If you read River of Grass, which is the book that ultimately led to the creation of the Everglades, a national park, most people just thought it was swampland. It's like, who cares? Let's go dump old furniture and everything else out here, or vacant, cars. No, she was critical. So if you're going to go after a project like that in Miami, let me just sort of put it in perspective. That would almost be the equivalent of going into South Africa and ripping down a Nelson Mandela. I maybe I'm not going to go that far, but it's got stature. Her name has stature. They have high schools named after her throughout South Florida. There's all kinds of things associated with it. And why would you take that away from our history? Why would you take it away from our heritage? Why would you take it away basically our whole kind of being? We name streets, and we have statues, we have all kinds of stuff. This
What's
is
the point?
Yeah, what is the point whatsoever? Let's just rip down everything. Let's just let's sponsor it all out. We can bring in whatever bank or whatever to
It's
come
the
in. But
Bugatti Nature Center, Peter.
it doesn't make any sense to me why you would even contemplate this or consider this or why there's now listen, I'm not some bleeding out liberal. I'm a registered independent. I vote based on who I think the candidate is. So this is not a political thing. This is more so this is a town I've lived in for 30 years. And I consider it home. And when I see these obnoxious steps to try to just weasel out some of the stuff that kind of makes up this community, do I go there all the time? Hell no. I might have been there once in my life, but that doesn't mean going forward, it's not a critical part. And and kudos to the Crandon family. They had the tennis center there, and there was some shenanigans were going on, and they said, you know what, piss off, and they shipped the tennis center up to Stephen Ross, Old Man Ross's Hard Rock Stadium, so they can do it. So certain times you got to take a stand, and stuff like this, which is critical to the overall community, I think is worth taking a stand. So whether it's a Trump presidential library site and or this park, I think these things are obnoxious, and I don't think the community benefits from it. Now, if you're going to pay people some kind of money to maybe go elsewhere for whatever reason, that's a different story. But please don't touch our few jewels we have left, because we have to deal with traffic, congestion, lack of public transportation. At least leave in place some of the things that were set up in the past, so the future generations can actually realize and start to understand where they're at.
That was a good speech. That was good.
Sorry to get off my soapbox,
No, that
but
was
it
so
certainly
good. That
pissed
was
me off.
so good. So, so I guess the question is, what happens when constituents throw fits? And we're buying that. You gotta buy the fit, guys. You gotta get angry. Read the newspaper. Don't read the newspaper. Get it from TikTok, wherever you get it from. Right? It's a means to get educated about the community. And if something gives you an ick, if it rubs you the wrong way, you can do something about it. And if you don't vote, vote. Really, vote. We had the highest voter turnout in city of Miami mayoral elections in, like, I don't know, 20 years, with 21.67%. It's wild. It's huge, huge, huge. I mean, 1 in 5, yes, abysmal, but
But it's
relatively
like a
speaking,
rounding error. It's like a round. It's a rounding error. It's
right?
like
So
grading on
so
a
if you're
curve.
look, if you're not going to vote, then go to the picket line and go yell at people, but do something. Again, applaud anybody who was involved in this, and I listen. I understand. I empathize with any of the bureaucrats in the county. You got a job. You're pushing paper. This file wasn't filed on this day, and protocol says we have to put it out to bid. But then you put your critical thinking hat on and you say, wait a minute, this probably wasn't the intention, and let's figure it out. Let's put it to a commission vote. Let's tell Daniela Levine Cava to pick up the phone, and maybe she'll fix the airport one day. That's another topic for another day. But yes, so I'm a buy.
Yeah, I would be a buy too. And by the way, anybody takes the Metro Rail, Mayor Levine Cava, she is addressing the escalator issues. You used to take the Metro Rail, all the escalators were broken. Now they're actually working. So salute. It took forever,
No,
but
it took
now
forever.
they're actually working now, and you don't have to go in the elevators that smell like urine. So that's a good news. That this is progress.
I love progress. You know who else loves progress? A gentleman by the name of Moishe Mana. Mana gets emotional about Miami. You sent me that. I think that might be my best one yet. You sent me a nice podcast that South Florida Business Journal did interviewing Mr. Mana, and he talks about uh, the Americas as a whole, which it's kind of interesting when you zoom out and you think about it from 85,000 feet up. Trump administration has this America First policy, America First policy. Well, guys, we live in the United States of America, but the Western Hemisphere is the Americas, right? And so Mana has this thought that's like, hey, the only way that the Americas, the Western Hemisphere, can compete with China is that we all get together, with Miami sort of being the choking point here, the bottleneck, the connector, the great connector between Latin America and the rest of North America, and we can compete. And you can't just do that by putting up high rises everywhere. His hypothesis, his thesis, is that you have to start with culture. The foundation has to be culture. So he spent the better part of 20 years. He's a gentleman from the Northeast, from New York, who's come down here, and he very famously bought up something. What did he say in the interview? Like 80 parcels in Wynwood over the course of the years. I mean, this is when people were going into Wynwood and buying entire blocks with enough cash that you could fit into a briefcase because nobody wanted to go into Wynwood. It was full of chop
I
shops. And this,
Daniel, I want to say 80 properties in downtown Miami.
okay, so that's his current portfolio.
Yep.
But so this is Moishe Miami 2.0. Moishe Miami 1.0 is he went into Wynwood at the turn of the century and started buying everything up. Now 2.0 is Moishe, and he's got the Nikola Tesla Innovation Center right there on South Miami Avenue, right by the on-ramp to get onto 95. It's been severely delayed. And he cites what a lot of other people in the media have been citing about Miami is permitting problems and bureaucracy problems. Now, I was just applauding the county for putting on their thinking cap and sort of skirting their protocols and their processes to get this to happen for the Biscayne Nature Center. But you talk to any developer in town, and all you get is an eye roll when you start talking about delays in permitting because they say, talk to the city, man. So if the developers can't, if developers, if they can't get their permits expedited, who the hell can?
Well, there's always two sides to every story, just in terms of the permitting issue. A lot of times, what I've been told and I've heard is the reason that they're getting delayed and things are happening is you're trying to kind of go outside the box and understand what Miami 21 is. Miami 21 is this visionary move that was adopted locally, and people study it. They look at it from all over the world in terms of urban planning, urban design, things like that. And basically, it says you can build basically anything you want as long as you do these certain types of things. And they give you all kinds of freedom, opposed to like you go to a Coral Gables. Coral Gables, if you build a certain architectural style, they give you extra stories, but otherwise it's very limited. So Miami 21 is saying, listen, we're going to allow you to build whatever you want to build, assuming you're within these certain parameters. Now there are catches, especially if you go integrated onto Miami because of square footage and because of other stuff. But just generally speaking, it's meant to be developer friendly. So a lot of what's gone on in Greater Downtown Miami since 2000, and the impetus behind Miami 21 was the 2000 census, where Miami was declared the poorest big city in the country. And a mayor called Manny Diaz, he pushed forward this Miami 21 because money was flying into Miami International Airport. It was going over the causeway into Miami Beach, and nobody was spending cash here. So it was effectively a hole in the donut. You had Miami Beach, you had Aventura, you had the Grove, you had South Miami, you had Doral was maybe coming into its place, the Gables, but it was all empty. So they needed a way to basically incentivize and allow developers to come here and build as high as they want. So many developers have been able to do it. The ones who haven't been able to do it, I would argue it has to do a little bit more what they're trying to do rather than the zoning. Now, is there bureaucracy and stuff like that? Yeah, I do know people who've headed the planning and zoning and other things. These people want development. They want to make it happen. It's just sometimes when these developers are really trying to twist the arm of the city and shake them down for all kinds of extra things with the with the carrot that it's going to turn into this great project and you simply can't pass it by. So it's a give and take. But what I thought was interesting about Moshimana in his interview, Daniel, is he said Miami's a bunch of hillbillies, to quote him. He said we are cultural hillbillies. We don't understand what's going on, and he simply is trying to
Well,
help.
I mean, he's comparing Miami to a place like Milan.
Yes,
Guys, we ain't gonna be Milan. We ain't trying to be Milan. People from
but
Milan come here so that they can wear bikinis. It's cold in Milan. I don't want to be Milan. No.
but credit to him, he's trying to keep. Okay, so let's go back to the 1980s. This is before my time, but I've read books about it. There's a great book called Miami Babylon on it. Joan Didion did a book called Miami as well. This is the 80s stuff. So back then, we were coming out of Mariel boat lift. We were coming out of the retirees, the demographics that were changing. And at the time, Miami Beach was on some hard times. So what did they decide to do? They wanted to knock down all these Art Deco, these pieces or whatever. They were inefficient. They want to knock
Right.
it all
Who
down.
is who is the mayor of Miami Beach at the time?
Was it Dowd? Wasn't it Dow, the guy who got taken down for? I think it
No,
was
no.
Dow.
Who is the big? There was a big New York socialite lady
Oh, Kapman was the one who led like the
who led
whole
the Art Deco movement.
yeah, Barbara
Barbara Kaplan.
Kaplan.
Barbara.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is in the 80s they saved what was Art Deco. Okay. And now people love it. Well, I mean, Miami Beach has got some challenges, but still people love it. So what Moishe says, or Moish, they call him Moishe, I don't know, it's Moishe, Mana. What he said is downtown Miami and Flagler Street is very unique. I love the structures. They're inefficient, but I love it. And I think it can
The
be that type
Freedom
of community.
Tower, the old courthouse.
But especially Flagler Street, yeah, the old courthouse, stuff like that. It's got a vibe. It's cool. It's kind of gritty. So he's doing everything he can. The problem is he's 68, 69, and because of planning, he says he doesn't know if he's going to live long enough to be able to see everything kind of play itself out. But he has grand visions, and they asked him, "Well, why are you doing this? Are you making money? Are you taking money from other businesses to keep this thing afloat?" And he said, "Yes. This is his
It's
Don
an
Quixote
emotional
moment."
investment. That's what he said,
No,
right?
well, it's legacy. He said this is his legacy project. This is his Don Quixote. This is effectively his Tony Goldman. Tony Goldman was somebody who came in. He went into Wynwood after he did stuff in South Beach and he did stuff in New York. And Tony Goldman now is recognized in Wynwood. And I think Moishi, however the hell you say it, he
Moishe.
wants to be he wants to be recognized. I think on Flagler Street and in and around greater that central business district. So I salute him for that. I also salute the fact that he seems like he's a hell of a character. I would love to go have a beer with him and talk shit because this guy is very interesting. And I would encourage everybody to check out the podcast. South Florida Business Journal did it. They have an interview with him, and the guy is amazing in terms of his insight. But you can tell he likes to curse.
And he likes to rub people the wrong way, but as do we. I think we might get along. I'm 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 a buy. I drink the idealism Kool-Aid from this guy.
Yeah, me
I
too.
don't I don't know if it truly is just a romantic ideal that he can build this ecosystem and then develop around it. It seems like so many folks here just go for the low-hanging fruit and go straight for the development because that's what everybody does. I build a building, I sell the building, I move on to the next building. But the idea of building a community and then having people actually want to live in that community and then support everyone in that community, then the buildings actually become necessary because in order to live in that community that has been built, you have to have a building to live in. And so I respect his rationale. I respect his logic. I hope he can get it done because we've talked about Flagler on this show several times, and it's a shit show.
Nothing going on whatsoever. It takes forever to do the
And
redevelopment. In fact, he said
and
during the
that is like
podcast.
that is Main Street, dude. That is Street Zero. That is if Miami had a Main Street, Flagler would be it.
It's so true. It's so true. He talked about during the podcast that every 10 years they redo Flagler Street and they think if they improve it, it's going to be better. It never happens. But he actually went out and had his own architectural renderings done.
He
And
spent
then he
150 grand of his own cash to do it.
and he donated it so they could go and they could build it that way. How many years they started construction during the pandemic on this? And
Years,
what are they
Peter,
like
years.
three
And
blocks
they've
into it?
just opened like phase one of three. I don't know. I'm a buy. I like him. Maybe Ken Billions will never get to lunch with him, but I think Moishe's a more accessible guy. Moving along, Edgewater's getting more climate resilient units. They're getting more units. Edgewater is getting more units. Commission voted last Thursday. I think it was the same meeting where they punted the Watson Island sale vote. But first read of the new zoning density. So in Edgewater, and it's actually going to include Watson Island, curious timing, and Venetian. I don't know what they're trying to do on Venetian. But the residents on Venetian are allowed. I don't think they'll allow for more density on Venetian. But so Watson Island and Edgewater are included in this. What is this? It is a resiliency fund, Peter. And a resiliency fund, that's what we can't say climate change here, but what we can say is that we're building resilience. What are we building resilience to? We're building resilience to rising seas, Peter. That means higher seawalls. That means pumps. If you've ever been to Sunset Harbor, really posh community over there in South Beach, where they have Lucali and Pub Belly and Barceloneta. Well, I don't know if you remember, but about 10 years ago now, they actually raised the street. So if you go to any of these businesses, you got to walk down steps, probably 4 or 5 feet down onto the retail level, and there are pumps that pump water out of Sunset Harbor. Well, Edgewater, because it is so aptly named, it is on water's edge. If a little trickle of water falls from the sky, it floods just immediately. And every new building that goes in there has, I don't know, at least a couple hundred units. How many cars per unit, Peter?
Good question. Those buildings are typically 300 units and there's 1.5 spaces. So call it 450 parking spaces.
Okay, so you're adding 450 cars. Streets aren't getting any wider. We know that from Brickell. So streets aren't getting any wider. It's flooding. Something needs to be done. And, we got budget issues in this town, dude. So Damian Pardo backed this resiliency trust fund. That's effectively what it's called. And it's going to require, and Peter and I have to read into it a little more, but the headline is $35,000 per unit will have to go into this fund. So if I'm building a 200 unit building, 35,000 times 200, I have to put in, holy shit, another $7 million into this resiliency trust fund. Now, we don't know for sure, right, Peter, if it's $35,000 per additional unit. Like if I can build X and now I can build 2X, is it for the new units? Is it retroactive where if I haven't broken ground, I now owe this $35,000 per door? I don't know. And we will have an answer for you by next week's show.
Yeah, I would think it's like an impact fee. Like, for
It's an
instance,
impact fee.
Yeah, if you're on the beach, Miami Beach, and you want to put tables and chairs outside, they bang you for every chair
But
and
that's
every
a
table.
tremendous sum, $35,000 a unit. I mean, you're selling some of these units. There are really high-end condos here in Edgewater, but there are also condos that they're selling for 600 grand. So 5% of the unit, because this doesn't seem to be relative fee like an impact fee. An impact fee is dependent on your impact, right? The size of your building, your footprint. If it's $35,000 a unit, whether you're a $500,000 unit or a $5 million unit, that can be significant. That can eat into a developer's margin in a big way.
Yeah, and to kind of give people an idea about this area, how bad does it flood? We're not talking about puddling. We're talking about full-fledged
Stalling your Beamer.
Call your AAA
Yeah.
guy to come pick you up and tow you over to Bremen or something for your BMW because the whole thing is shot, the engine is shot. So when it comes down, it comes down. There's not a lot of green space in and around there because they're building so close to the sidewalk. There's no real setbacks, maybe a little bit of green space, which is another reason when I do my tours, my walking tours, I tell people don't walk on the sidewalk, walk in the street. Because 300 units, 0.5 dogs, and there's no green space. So you got to understand this is high density. The bay is right there, hence Edgewater. Biscayne Bay is right there. A storm came through. What was the storm that hit us in like 2017, 2018? Dan?
That was Irma and Maria.
Irma Marina. So what they're doing is they're raising almost the entrance to these buildings. The building I was in, you actually entered on the second floor, so the parking garage was below. They didn't have the full-fledged 8-story pedestal, and I went into the ground floor. Water was, I'm 5'11", I say 6 foot, but I say 5'11". Water was over my kneecaps. That's how high it was, and we didn't even get a direct hit from the hurricane. So everybody whose cars were in the garage,
forget it.
Good luck with that. And we're talking about people who are dropping big money on rent, and therefore they probably got expensive cars. So this is something that's definitely needed. But this is how we address climate change down here. We build more, and the rationale is, what the hell are you going to build more for? Well, because what they do is because so much money is funded by property taxes, whether it's the city, the county, the school board. It's coming from the property tax. So the way that that Miami Beach started this in order to build those pumping stations, another thing, you want to encourage more development. Therefore, you got more tax revenue coming in, and therefore you can allocate more. That's the general concept. So this seems to be like City of Miami under the Commissioner Bardo. They're going in the same direction. So yeah, the only way we can deal with this, because we're not going to be able to tax people otherwise, let's charge more, get better valuations, take some of the cash and earmark it for this. So I kind of understand what he's doing. And listen, by the way, if you live down there right now, good luck driving anywhere because the traffic is so horrendous from 7:30 till 9:30, and then again from 2:30 till 7. So if you're down there, you're pretty much walking everywhere, taking a trolley, but it takes forever and ever and ever. So how does it all play out? I don't think anybody knows, but at least they're identifying that we have a problem and they're coming up with some sort of solution. I'm sure there'll be ways to work around it, though, from a developer perspective.
I mean, it seems pretty cut and dry. You're building a 300 unit building, you got to spend $7 million into this fund. What I think is interesting, and I was just thinking about it now. I didn't research it beforehand, but I was thinking about it now as you were talking about it. Is did they wind up dissolving the community redevelopment agency for Pardos District that they took away from? Weren't they going to take it away from Carollo?
I don't know.
There was a CRA, there was a community
Yes.
redevelopment district, right? Community redevelopment agency responsible for outside of the DDA, outside of the Downtown Development Authority, and they were going to sunset it. And those redevelopment agencies command an insane amount of cash. So I just did the quick back of the napkin math. I know Peter can pull the numbers for next week, but say, I don't know, Peter, 2,000 units over the next 5 years in Edgewater. Is that realistic?
It might be on the low side.
Okay, so that conservative estimate, 2,000 units times 35,000, that's $70 million that's going to have to be paid into this fund. And that's over the next 5 years. That's a lot of seawall and pumps, my dude. Or potentially a lot of grifting. This is where all the grifting and shit happens, guys, by the way. And these, Cousin Paco, which is nobody, neither of us is cousins, but he is our fictitious permanent guest on the show. Cousin Paco, he does a ton of contractor work for the city and the county. And this is how people get kickbacks from these giant funds. And so this is why some people hate it. I guarantee you this is something that developers are going to point to. They're going to say, this is bullshit. This is way too much money to be handled by one commissioner, because one commissioner will get assigned this ultimately, right? That's how it always happens. Yep. That all being said, I'm still a buy. I think we need it. I think.
All right, so what happens? Let's just say, okay, the city of Miami is going to deal with the rising sea levels and the situation I was talking about with the hurricane that just came close to us and everything got flooded. What happens if Tallahassee gets rid of property taxes? So you see what I'm saying? Is this a move in anticipation?
Absolutely, because otherwise you're going to have to go to Daddy up in Tallahassee and say, "Please, sir, can I have some more?"
Yeah. But there's good news. Supposedly, it's only going to be in Edgewater, which is effectively going to be from about 17th Terrace all to about 36th Street. It'll be the Bay to maybe Miami Avenue or Northwest Side, Northeast
Watson Island and Venetian.
Watson Island as well.
Watson Island, the timing is very, very curious. Two big developments are slated to go up on Watson Island if the Merrimack and BH3 guys can get their things together, and if they can somehow retort the new appraisal that came into the city of Miami, flagging that property, that 3.2 acre parcel that they were about to steal. And when I say steal, it was still $29 million, but steal, because the private appraiser just came back to the city. You know how much it was? Over $200 million, Peter.
That's the real number. That's the real number, not the first number.
Yeah! This restrictive zone, the lease is restrictive. We can only build this much. Bullshit. It's bullshit. And even if it is true, it might be true on paper, you're going to lobby You're going to invite people to the F1 race. You're going to send them to Saudi Arabia. Who wants to go to Saudi Arabia? By the way, totally random country of choice. Not pointing fingers anywhere.
FIFA World Cup.
FIFA, you're going
Definitely
to
have a
get World Cup
championship game.
tickets for the 4 fucking games that are going to be played in South Florida. They keep on talking about FIFA. Guys, the only way we were able to get the freaking bid to begin with is because we had to partner with Canada and Mexico. When in the history of FIFA have they got 3 countries together in like 6 different time zones? I'm going off on a tangent. Are you a buy on this, Peter?
I am a buy at addressing rising sea level and somehow trying to curtail it or at least control it. So yes, I would be a
Yeah.
buy. I don't know if this is the right solution, but let's get something going. Like
Moving
Miami
along, moving
Beach.
along. Miami-Dade. You are right, Peter. This is the environmental episode. I guess because we're eating turkey tomorrow, we got to, talk about the environment. So, Miami-Dade is a wetland slumlord. I'm going to dive into this and explain what I'm talking about. But I have to look at my notes because this took quite a bit of looking into. So this is all about mitigation credits. And Peter sent me this article, and I need to think about it like I'm explaining it to a 5-year-old. Not because I think you guys are 5-year-olds, because I think it's easier for me to even understand it this way. So a mitigation credit, think of it like a permission slip, right? So carbon credits, when you buy them to make up for something else. So in the case of development in Florida, you get mitigation credits for hurting wetlands. So for doing things that you wouldn't necessarily be allowed to do in coastal areas and protected areas, mangroves. So when you fill, when you drain, when you otherwise do damage, right? So the easiest way for a developer to mitigate this is to buy credits from a mitigation bank, which is a big restored wetland they already did the work, and then they sell pieces of that good deed as credits, right? So now we're going to get into a few numbers, and this is why it's in the news today. So if you're a developer, you hire an environmental consultant, and they map your wetland, and there's a standardized score, and they assign you a score. And then that score determines how many credits that you have to buy before the Department of Environmental Protection in Florida signs off on your permit. If you don't have the permit, you can't do anything, right? So in a perfect world, you get those credits from your district. So if you've got a project in South Florida, you're probably in what they call Everglades 1 or Everglades 2, right? And so you're fucking with wetlands in this district, then you buy credits from these guys, and it's all hunky-dory. You pay the money. The credits, they range in price anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000. So if you need 1 credit, think of it like that. If you need 5 credits, think of it like over $1 million. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If your district doesn't have any credits available, you're kind of shit out of luck. Until just last year, a new state bill got passed through the Senate and passed through the House, allowing developers to get credits from other districts, which is, it's great because now a developer who's building something in Miami and there's no credits available, they can go to Orlando and say, hey, there's some credits up there. I need some credits. Send them down. There's a credit broker, right? A mitigation banker. Think of it like that. Mitigation credit banker. And they came up with this formula, and it throws money straight back into the mitigation efforts. And they charge another 20% for every line that you cross. And so if you cross 1 line, they multiply it by 1.2, 20% premium. And for every additional line you cross, it's another 0.25, right? So if you cross 2 lines, the mitigation amount is 1.45, right? So if you were going to pay $100,000 for this credit in Miami and you had to go to Orlando, which crossed 2 district lines, then you have to pay whatever that is, 145. right? You have to pay 145 grand. So, and this is a lot. Now, all of these mitigation banks, they're districts and they're published in these ledgers. I can pull one up as soon as I get off my soapbox, I guess. Mayor Danielle Levine Cava has come out and said, well, I'm going to do a mitigation bank for county parks. And this is crazy. Nobody's ever done this before at such a local level. So now developers aren't going to have to cross district lines to get credits from another district if there's none in Southeast Florida. They won't have to cross 3 district lines and pay a premium and go get credits from Jacksonville. They'll be able to get them from right here in Miami-Dade. It's kind of a brilliant way, and Peter and I we talk about this a lot. The dichotomy, the power struggle between local governments trying to get cash and Tallahassee trying to get that tax cash. But if it happens all here locally, then developers pay less and the money comes straight into the county. And that's it. That's my 5th grade explanation, my understanding of it. I think it's a good idea on paper, but I do admit I have to read a little bit more about it.
Yeah. And Daniel, I think that's much better than a fifth grade description. I'd probably put that like
Sophomore level?
bachelor degree area. No,
Wow, whoa, Peter.
definitely university level. Definitely university level. So that's all I can add to Daniel. Big pictures. Everybody needs to understand. Real estate is what fills the coffers. Property taxes fill the coffers. It gives the money to the city, the county, and the school board. If you somehow are limited or tapped out on building something new, that means you're kind of restricted on how much your property taxes can increase and what their coffers can be filled with if you are the governmental bodies. So you want to encourage new development. We've always wanted new development. We don't have state income tax, so real estate is what kind of gets everything going. So finding these solutions in order to allow development to go forward, and somehow, I guess the blended average of these wetlands, it plays out. Maybe one area is sort of screwed and the other area is doing well, but the
Right.
the overall average plays itself out. I guess what they're trying to say. So that they're trying to accomplish 2 things. One, they want to keep the development going so the property taxes can go up, and 2, they want to sort of deal with this wetlands issue or flooding or preserving mangroves. So when storms come rolling in, so like when the head of Architectonica design firm, he's got a house, he decides he's going to cut down all the mangroves because they don't look good and it blocks his view and he doesn't like the mosquitoes and everything. So all of these things are meant towards kind of trying to find that balance between real estate development, which is what we need to keep all of the lights on at the city, the county, and the school board, but also to the natural beauty, which is what attracts people here, and yet is able to help them keep their feet dry. And and that's really a critical part. You don't want to walk out and the water's all the way up to your kneecaps type of situation. So it's a balance. They're trying to figure it out. Kudos to thinking outside the box and trying to find a solution. And I'd put it in the camp of effectively carbon credits because you want progress, but at the same time, you also need to be addressing the bigger picture issue. Even though we can't talk about climate change or anything like that in the state of Florida, it's been stricken from all the books. So, that is our balance. But the big picture is we need real estate going, but we also need to recognize we're all here because of the natural beauty and the climate of this particular special place all the way at the southern tip of the continental United States.
Very well put, Peter. So I just pulled up for the gang. Anybody who's not just listening and who's watching on YouTube or Substack, this is an example of one of the ledgers. So you can poke around here. It's on the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, floridadep.gov, and you can go in and you can see where these mitigation sites are. I'm sure there's a map somewhere around here, but I won't waste anybody's time by poking around. But I do encourage you to take a look at it if it interests you, or if you have an environmental attorney and he's charging you $1,000 an hour just to do this, you could do it and send it to him and save yourself a few $100. Again, I on the surface seems like a good idea. Seems pro development, seems pro environment. I don't know how the two can be true, but I'd like to think in this instance it might be. I'll look into it more, but as I understand it now, I am a buy. Somebody prove me wrong. Somebody come on and yell at me and tell me I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I'd be a buy as well. Based on everything that they're discussing, I'm sure whoever's out there, someone's going to find loopholes. They're going to figure out a way to sort of capitalize and take advantage of
Well,
it.
this
But
this is the loophole, right? I mean, this is the loophole to get away from having to pay that multiplier. Because if you want to
but
build something in this district and there's no credits, then you have to spend time lobbying to get a public service job done that would administer credits that enable you to buy them. And so that was the
but
2025 law. And now they can cross the line, but they have to pay an egregious premium.
well, and it makes me think because you're talking countywide, and I don't know. I'm going off talk cuff here, but does the Everglades count as a park? And if you could sell, you could sell the wetlands rights to the Everglades. We have something called an urban development boundary line, which is a artificial line that was just determined. On one side you can build, the other side you cannot build. Just imagine if the mayor is able to take the Everglades on the west side of Chrome or the UDB urban development boundary line, and she could sell the rights to the Everglades.
Oh,
Think about what a
Jesus.
cash cow that would be. See, I'm just saying, I've been in Miami way too
You're just
long.
thinking of naughtiness. You're just thinking
No,
of
but I'm in
naughtiness.
Miami for how long? Where we got a presidential library going up on dirt, potentially that was given away for free. That's got a valuation north of $300 million. There's always an angle involved. So let's just assume that's not the case. Let's
We
assume everybody's trying to build real estate as well as preserve the natural beauty, is which is the reason we're all here.
we gotta pull some developers off the record about this. And you'll be able to see it by a little twinkle in their eyes. No, it's a fantastic for the environment.
Yeah.
Um, all right, we were gonna be done, and we've been great with time today, but Peter had one thing, and because it's Thanksgiving, guys, Peter, I'll let you take this one.
So the Miami New Times, which is the alternative newspaper or publication down here in Miami-Dade County, they came out with a ranking of which neighborhoods in Miami-Dade County have the boldest. They call it boldest. Let's call them the toughest chickens. We have a problem in Miami-Dade County with wild chickens roaming
What a
everywhere.
problem? Why problem? What did you say problem?
Well, we
It's
have
a
an issue.
feature. It's a feature.
It's an amenity. You're right. It's a feature. So we have flocks of chickens that are all over. So Little Havana has its own. The chickens in Little Havana have a vibe. The chickens in Little Haiti have a vibe. Those in Coconut Grove and Coral Gables, they have to deal with the peacocks, which are also wild. So then you get into downtown Miami and Brickell. They have their own chickens and all these different personalities of chickens and neighborhoods. Alapata, which is an area just north of the river in and around Jackson Hospital, that medical center. So the New Times went ahead and they ranked the chickens in terms of which ones were the boldest. And the question they ask is, if there was an apocalypse or if there was a Mad Max type of situation, you all remember that movie, from Australia where there's no water and it's like roaming bandits going around. Which flock of chickens would do the best? And it got us thinking. When you go to Little Havana and you go to parts of Miami, back like in the early 2000s, I think it was Chicago, they came out with this idea where they put cows outside of buildings. It was public art. It was a movement towards public art. Many cities then followed, and you had
Oh, we had flamingos, didn't we?
Miami Beach had flamingos, and city of Miami adopted the rooster. So they have the rooster there. So the rooster really is symbiotic with Miami and the wild chickens. Key West will claim that their chickens are better than any of the chickens that are up here in the Miami-Dade County area,
They're
given the fact
saltier
that
for sure.
saltier for sure. So the question for everybody to sort of contemplate as you see these wild chickens roaming everywhere, is which neighborhood has the most refined chickens and which ones would have the roughest chickens. And we have a local historian. This gentleman is highly acclaimed. He's called Paul George, Dr. Paul George. He used to teach at Miami-Dade College. He does walking tours. Anybody coming to Miami for South during the winter buying season, look up Paul George. He does these walking tours. I highly recommend you go to these tours. He's actually quoted. He's actually quoted in the New Times story. They go to this historian, legendary historian of Miami, talking about the chickens in the different neighborhoods, and he makes the case that the peacocks that are wild, they don't get along with the chickens, but the peacocks are definitely they're not liked by the residents because they make loud noises where the chickens don't.
Oh,
The chickens
do they
simply
make
wander around.
loud noises? Those peacocks, they've jumped on my roof before.
I'm sure they have, and I'm sure they left a mark.
They have talons, Pete.
Yes, they do. Yes, they
Oh
do.
yeah,
Yes,
they're,
they
they're
do.
like they're like velociraptors with pretty colors. People who move here from the Northeast and see peacocks just roaming around for the first time, and then they sprawl up their wings like that. It's funny to see somebody see it for the first time, and I'm just thinking, oh, they just crap everywhere.
That they do. And if I could just add one point about these chickens is uh, uh I made a call to the county and I asked them, there's wild chickens everywhere. How do you sort of deal with them? Can I shoot them? This was a joke. I don't have a gun. Can I shoot them? And they said, no, 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 no. We'll send out animal control. I said, okay, well, walk me through it. How does it work? They said, well, what we'll do is we'll put a bunch of guys and women in a van. We'll drive around in the neighborhood. And when we see them, everybody will jump out of the van and they'll chase them with nets and they'll catch them. And this is how they eradicate the chickens. And I thought it was all BS. I
It's like a
thought they,
Looney Tunes commercial.
yeah, I thought the person at the county was BSing me. Fast forward a year or two, I see two guys running down the middle of the street with fishing nets. The ones that kind of go up. They got the
Yeah, the
circular, like if you're going to
telescoping
bring in
fishing
a.
nets. Yeah.
They're chasing the chickens down the street. They actually cornered one with the net, and this is how they catch the chickens. This is why we're never going to eradicate chickens here because they have guys
This
running
is
down the street with nets trying to catch chicken.
what here's and to close the show, I want to know how they catch their chickens in Milan because that's the real cultured. That's the real global traveler. Does
Says
Milan even have a
Moishimana.
chicken problem? Apparently not. They're too sophisticated to have chickens. I think we should embrace the chickens. It is what it is. Why? What's the origin of this? Is it because all the cockfighting was very popular in the '80s and it just kind of spread?
Well, the New Times piece gets into that. They talk about like in Hialeah. Hialeah is one of the areas they say the Hialeah chickens, the wild chickens, those are the ones that escape from people's yards. So they were actually there performing a service with the eggs and everything, versus the chickens that are in the Gables and in Miami and downtown Miami. These are more like rogue chickens. And by the way, they say Little Havana, the chickens and the roosters there are the boldest of them all, and they have swagger unlike any other chickens elsewhere. While the ones in Little Haiti, they're more so on the edges, and they sort of pop in and pop out. Where in Little Havana, the chickens walk around and they like to be photographed. So just something to keep in mind. Much like the Key West chickens.
Our local chicken authority, Peter Zalewski. But if you want to buy a condo, you can also go on one of his walking tours at MiamiCondo.club. And with that, everybody, wait, I guess we're a buy? We're just universally, ubiquitously a buy? That wasn't even a question. I just wanted to let you talk about the chickens.
I am definitely a buy. I think
I'm,
it's part
I'm
of
a
the
buy on
persona.
Peter's chickens because it's the holidays. But with that, everybody, that is buy, sell, hold. Today is not, in fact, the 28th, but today's the 26th. So thank you for joining us on this marvelous, marvelous holiday weekend. We will see you back live next Friday for our regularly scheduled programming. And we owe you some details and facts, and we'll get to them. But with that, buy, sell, hold Miami. My name is Daniel Hernandez, and I'm joined with my co-host, Peter Zalewski. Have a good weekend, everybody.